This coming Sunday is the 11th Sunday after Pentecost, or proper 13. For the next several weeks, the gospel lectionary text will not come from Mark, but from one of the other three gospels. And today our text is from the Gospel of Luke, and it is a doozy. It is Luke 18, 1 through 8. This is the parable of the persistent widow. Parables are always a challenge for me, but this one is particularly challenging. I have no idea what this parable means. None at all. It is super confusing to me. The widow isn't as expected. She is strong and determined. She is set on seeking justice. Or is it vengeance that she seeks? The word that she uses is the same word describing the vengeance God exacted against the firstborn sons of the Egyptians when Pharaoh refused Moses' plea to let my people go. This woman wants to smite her adversary. She really wants to sock it to them. And she goes toe to toe with a judge who does not fear God nor respect humans. So how can this judge do his job wisely if this is his character? And I was surprised by Gaffney's translation to find out that he does not give in to the woman because she wears him out, but because he fears violence. So I'm going to read to you what she says in her translation notes. Oh, if I can find it. Here we go. She says, the justice the widow seeks in verse 4 of the gospel, ekdikeson, includes the notion of vengeance. Her adversary, one possible translation of antidiku, can also be understood as a plaintiff or accuser who has brought legal charges against her. In Luke 18:5, the corrupt judge uses a bit of dramatic hyperbole with the verb hypopiazo, meaning to blacken the eye. While most translations treat the expression as euphemistic for wearing him out, the BDAG, Greek English lexicon of the New Testament and other early Christian literature, lists as its first meaning to blacken an eye, give a black eye, strike in the face. And then it goes on to say, of a woman who is driven to desperation and who the judge in the story thinks might in the end express herself physically. Hyperbole is stock and trade of popular storytelling. Some prefer to understand hypopiazo in this passage in this sense. So I found that shocking that the judge gives in to her because he's worried that she might give him a black eye. I'd never heard that before. So I'm not sure what to do with this parable. I guess I can be grateful that we are taking the time to slow down today and ponder it. So let's get started. Before I read the passage, I will, if I can find my lighter, I will light the candle. Invite us to rest for a moment in God's presence. And I'll pray for these graces, to know Jesus more intimately, to love him more intensely, and to follow him more closely. Luke 18, 1-8. Jesus told the disciples a parable about the need to pray continually and not be discouraged. He said, "There was a judge in a certain city who neither feared God nor respected people. There was a widow in that city, and she came to him continually and saying, 'Grant me justice against my accuser.' And he was not willing for some time. But later he said to himself, 'Though I do not fear God nor respect anyone else, yet because this widow persists in troubling me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not ultimately come to violence against me.' And the Messiah said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to the elect of God who cry to God day and night? Will God forbear in helping them? I tell you all, God will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Woman comes, will he find faith on the earth?'" Word of God, word of life. Before I guide you through the passage with questions and pauses, let's take a moment to center ourselves, breathing in God's Spirit and breathing out anything that distracts us from being in the presence of God. Pray again for our graces, to know Jesus more intimately, to love him more intensely, and to follow him more closely. I invite you to enter the story. You are among the disciples gathered around Jesus on the road to Jerusalem. This journey has been filled with teaching and miracles and confrontations. Jesus has been teaching you about the reign of God and faith, and about the need to remain steadfast. Jesus told the disciples a parable about the need to pray continually and not be discouraged. As you walk along listening to Jesus teach about the need to pray, how are you feeling? What discouragements or challenges are you facing in your life that you are holding in prayer? Jesus said, "There was a judge in a certain city who neither feared God nor respected people." Imagine what this judge might look like and what characteristics the judge possesses. How do you feel knowing that this judge does not fear God or respect people? What emotions does this stir in you? There was a widow in that city, and she came to him continually in saying, "Grant me justice against my accuser." What does the widow look like as she repeatedly approaches the judge? What do you notice about her demeanor and her resolve? How do you react to her boldness and her desire to avenge her adversary? And the judge was not willing for some time. How does his reluctance make you feel? What thoughts come to your mind about justice and fairness? But later, the judge said to himself, "Though I do not fear God, nor respect anyone else, yet because this widow persists in troubling me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not ultimately come to violence against me." What expression does the judge have on his face as he makes the decision to grant the widow's request based on his own self-preservation? How do you find yourself reacting to this judge? And the Messiah said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says." What is stirring in your heart as you consider the judge's decision and Jesus' call to listen? Why do you think Jesus wants you to pay special attention to these words? Jesus continues, and will not God grant justice to the elect of God who cry to God day and night? Will God forbear in helping them? How does this promise of divine justice comfort or challenge you? How have you experienced God's response when you have cried out to God day and night? I tell you all, God will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Woman comes, will he find faith on the earth? How do you respond to this question? What assumptions about justice, persistence, prayer, and divine response does this parable challenge for you? I invite you to spend the next 10 minutes in a colloquy with the divine. Speak to God about what you experienced during this contemplation. What might God want to say to you about your life or the life of your community as it relates to this parable? When I sound my chimes, it will indicate that you have about a minute to wrap up your colloquy, after which time I will end the silence by reading this week's psalm. If you're doing this contemplation later with a recording, go ahead and hit pause now and spend as much time in conversation with God as you feel you need. Then restart the video when you're ready to hear the reading of the psalm.